Also book recommendation time over here on the estuary. However, it is also Holy Thursday or Maundy Thursday, which means that tomorrow is Good Friday and Sunday is Easter. This is the high point of the Christian calendar, and it's worth kind of adjusting my book recommendation schedule a little bit. So instead of sharing stuff I'm reading or new books that are to come, I'm going to share just two books that will help. Well, they have helped me reflect on Good Friday and the cross of Christ and what it means to be a Christian, which I happily and joyfully acknowledge. Obviously, if you've read or watched any of this Substack, you know that I am devoted to Jesus. So these two books, they're very, very different, and they both focus on Good Friday in particular. There's plenty of great commentaries and just writings about Easter and maybe next year or maybe next week. I don't know. There are some really great ones, but today I just found two on my shelf. Some they're fairly new. I would say within the last 5 to 10 years. I didn't really look at the actual dates, but one is 2024 and one is, I don't know, maybe 5 or 7 years old. So um, I think they're valuable to everyone who wants to explore what was the cross all about? Why did Jesus have to die? What exactly did it mean? How does that act forgive my sin? There's so much theology written and argued and debated about the events of Good Friday. So here are just a couple that I feel like are really valuable. Brian Zahn is a pastor, and he wrote The Wood Between the Worlds, a poetic theology of the cross. So I read this at least last year, possibly the year before. I don't know I can't remember exactly, but I remember I was so moved by it because when he says a poetic reflection, he really means it. This is a devotional. So the chapters are short. You can read one and sit and marinate in it, or you can read two or three. I made Instagram images that full of quotes. I do remember doing that because he's very quotable, and that's that poetry coming out. So I'm just going to read you one short, it's not a poem, but one short excerpt from it. And it's on page 16, The Epicenter of History. The cross really is the wood between the worlds because it is the true center of history. Everything leads up to and flows from the cross. The death of God upon a tree is not just some event within history, but the event that defines and explains, reveals and redeems all of history. However, we understand the origin of sin within the human story, its trajectory moves inevitably towards Good Friday. And however we understand the salvation of the world, the task given by the Father to the Son, it all flows forth from the eternal moment within time when Jesus, nailed to the wood between the worlds, prayed, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. From that moment, both our primordial past and our most distant future fell under the redeeming work of grace. He has a way with words. So I encourage you to grab this. If you can't grab a physical copy in time for tomorrow, download it, make it a digital form, and you don't have to just read it this week. It's great any time of the year. So that is the book for everybody. This next book is a little bit more specialized, and many of you already know what's coming. It is a theology book. It is big and fat, so right, but it's so readable. So when I grabbed this a few years ago, I thought I should read this, and then as I got into it, I thought, I can't stop reading this. The author writes in a very readable, not entertaining, but engaging fashion, right? And for a theology book, that's pretty amazing. And of course, we're talking about Fleming Rutledge's The Crucifixion. And yes, look, this is the paperback and it's super fat. So she is a Episcopalian priest. She's in her 80s now. And this is her magnum opus. She's written other books, and she has a lifetime of ministry as a priest. And this is just where she's come down. So I'm just going to read you some of the titles of the chapters. The primacy of the cross, the godlessness of the cross, the question of justice, the gravity of sin. She goes into the different biblical motifs, Passover and the Exodus, a blood sacrifice, ransom, redemption, apocalyptic war. Did he descend into hell? Substitution and recapitulation. So again, big words, big theology words, big book, but if you take it a bite-sized chunk at a time and just read half a chapter or a chapter at a time, you will not only gain an incredible amount of knowledge, but it will help you understand the arguments that have gone on through the ages and still go on between different wings within the church of what does the crucifixion mean? Why did Jesus die? What did it do? What do we have to believe? Those sorts of things. And so she does a really great job of explaining terms, of showing the history of who believed what and what were their arguments. And yet she's not boring and dry, which is genius. So she's a wonderful communicator. And this is a book I think everyone should have on their shelf if they want to understand what the broad scope of what the crucifixion was all about. And yeah, especially if you're a pastor or in any kind of ministry. So those are just the two. There's plenty more books out there. As you can see, I got lots to do, lots to read. And I have a large and growing TBR, to be read stack. But just for this weekend, there you go. I do pray that you have a lovely Easter weekend and are able to appropriately celebrate with your family and your loved ones the death and resurrection of our Lord. Thanks for being here, and I'll see y'all next week.